Introducing Tundra Football League.
Why, hello and welcome back to the FTFL Weekly Update. It is I, Brett Sieber, the host of the show, owner of the Hulkamaniacs, and really is, as and always will be, your king. 10 weeks have now passed us by in the FTFL regular season. 3 crucial weeks to go. Everybody is still in this. My goodness gracious. First and foremost, let us address the current situation involving the king. Now, the argument, of course, is he's no longer the king of the North, even though that's what his logo says. He claims to be the king of the FTFL. Just all sorts of chaos being created by him, not, of course, the self-proclaimed innovator of chaos, Adam Swart, owner of the overpaid, underworked, underappreciated log cabin pizza employees about to riot. The king is just slandering everyone. Butthurt, bitter about how this season has played out. On paper, maybe one of the best teams in the league, still just 6-4, tied for the lead in the South. And I just want to take this moment to remind you, Sid Hagen, you got beat by me. And you got beat by Eric. No matter what you do this year, we'll always have that on you. I enjoy the trash talk on the chat board. It definitely heats things up as we come down the wire. And things are definitely heating up as we battle for the top spot in the North. Mixing Cocktails are now 9-1, seeking out the greatest regular season record of all time, followed by the aforementioned employees that I guess are kind of somewhat about to riot. They're 8-2. These two teams play each other twice in the next 3 weeks, and so really all of that's going to be sorted out. And let's be honest, both of them are all but in the playoffs. I believe, yes, they're in. Locked in. All that's left to be said is who's getting the first round bye and who isn't. There are still, with 3 weeks to go, everyone is still in the race. However, a couple of the 3-7 teams, if they were to lose this week, I gotta believe that would be it, outside of some just miracle act of God, if you will. Just in case you missed it, before we get to the games, and of course we're gonna highlight this once we're in there as well, Jeff Markser and his team named Mana, 3-time Lucky Pants champ, you still owe me 7 cents. And you got Bart thrown in jail. Mana lost this week. And you're like, yeah, what else is new? He's had that kind of season. He, in fact, though, lost by 85.5 points. Woo! That, my friends, is noteworthy to you, Jeff. Wow. Didn't quite touch Eric's 90-point loss from last season. Boy, oh boy, it was close. And with that, let's get into the games and find out how everything shook out. King of the FTFL coming in at 5-4, taking on his friend of all those years, the architect, at 4-5. Matt trying to get a win, better his playoff positioning. Sid just trying to prove to everyone that he is the clear-cut best team in the league. 114.5 for Sid, 80 for Matt. If you're Sid, Prescott 24, the Pittsburgh defense 22, Dalvin Cook 21.5 on Sunday night, and Christian McCaffrey with 17 points. Cooper Kupp got him 0. Didn't matter at all. If you're Matt, Kyle Rudolph puts in 2 touchdowns. He has scored 3, I believe, in the last 3 weeks maybe, coming alive at just the right time for Matt. The San Fran defense, 16 points to match. Rudolph, 16. Jameis Winston with 14. Ezekiel Elliott, 5 points. And this year, of course, Ezekiel Elliott held out, wanted his big contract, even though he's a complete bum and just an idiot and shouldn't get any sort of guaranteed money, because I don't know what organization would count on him to keep that rudder pointing straight. However, got the money. Let's just look, though, over the last 3 seasons. His average in 2017, he was averaging 14.5 points a game. Last season, he was averaging 14.2 points a game, a slight decline. This year, it's down to 12.1. Now, you could argue maybe they're throwing the ball more. I argue that Ezekiel Elliott is not quite as good as we thought he was. He got his money, so it really doesn't matter. If you're Matt, you would like to see more than 5 points a week. Zach Pascal with an odd spot start got him 1 point. With the loss, Matt now falls to 7th place, 1 spot out of the playoff race. Another team that's now desperately trying to cling, I think maybe, although he did claim last week he wanted to lose to the playoff race, is Mana coming in at 3-6, taking on the Mixin Cocktails, who, by the way, are a team that is shaping up. And it doesn't seem to matter who they put in, they just score points, which, of course, is the formula for success. 143.5 to Jeff's 58. Like I said earlier, 85.5 points. Good God, was that an ass whipping? Lamar Jackson, 36 points. He is the 2nd highest point scorer at his position in the league. Golden Tate, 20. Oh, sorry, I take that back. Scratch that. Lamar Jackson, 36 points. His 2nd highest point total of the season. Golden Tate, 24 points, his highest point total of the season. The Baltimore defense, 23 points, their highest point total of the season. Ronald Jones gets in the lineup and he puts up 16, his highest point total of the season. Point I'm trying to make here, Andy, is that your team seems to continue to be getting lucky. And let's be honest, every year there is a team that gets lucky. Will you be able to find that luck as you head into the playoffs? Michael Thomas did throw in 16.5. He has had a stellar season. Nothing really to mention there. If you're Jeff Markser, boy, oh boy, there was just not a whole lot to be found here. Although if you do look around, what you do find your eyes gazing upon is the stupid face of Russell Wilson, who somehow, someway, his clown-ass team pulled out a victory on Monday Night Football. God, it just irks me to watch that crap. Yet there I am, a slave to my TV in the NFL, and I watch it nonetheless. Only 12 points, though, for Russell Wilson. Only 12. 10 points for Will Lutz. Half a point for David Johnson. Half a point. This is now the 2nd time in the last few weeks where David Johnson's like, nope, I'm healthy, I'm going to play, and then does next to nothing. Next to nothing. He is another one whose point totals over the years have come down from that glorious 2016 breakout season. 17, of course, he was hurt almost the whole season. Last year, 10.6. This year, 10.2. The average continues to fall. Is David Johnson going to be a keeper next year? Hard to say. Jeff with the loss not only falls to 3-7, but also number 8 in the playoff race. Next up, the overworked, underpaid, underappreciated Log Cabin Pizza employees really trying to muster one last riot to gain that number 1 seed, taking on Team Linkowitz at 4-5, and the Rioters get another win, 105.5 to Linkowitz's 77.5. If you're looking at Swartz lineup, Aaron Jones, huge week, 24 points. Melvin Gordon, 14.5 points. Matt Ryan, 14. Kenny Golladay, 13.5. Now, I mentioned a couple players going in the opposite direction. Let's look at Kenny Galladay's last 3 seasons. In 2017, he averaged 5.5. Last year, he averaged 7.9. This year, he's up to about 13 points a week. A name that maybe wasn't a really shiny name come draft day. Swart was able to get him. Of course, we all know Swart should have also ended up with Candy Walls. Maybe with Candy, he doesn't end up with Golladay. I don't know. And if that's the case, then maybe we should start this whole season over and just start at 0-0. Julio, 5.5 points. Not his greatest performance. Nonetheless, another win. 8-2 is now Adam Swart. If you're Linkowitz, Derrick Henry. Give Derrick Henry the ball. I don't understand how the Tennessee Titans aren't giving him the ball 25 times a game. It just makes no sense. Now, last year, if you remember, it was November, December where Derrick Henry absolutely made hay. And if you're Linkowitz, you're hoping for a repeat of that. Now, it seems to have started. 29 points. I mean, yes, Linkowitz lost. However, he is still number 5, would be in if the playoffs were starting this week. Tyreek Hill, 21.5. Mason Rudolph, 10 points as the Pittsburgh starting quarterback good Lord, if that's your quarterback going forward, John, I maybe. Everyone else on John's team is 4.5 points or less. There wasn't really much on the bench. On the bench, Zerline, who's averaging 10+ points a week, got himself 4. Minnesota, who's averaging 8+, got him 3. Some underperforming going on. John Linkowitz definitely in the mix, but hoping things start to get a little bit better going forward. All right, next up, we're going to dive back into some history with 20 weeks. We're going to dive back into history with 20 years of the FTFL, and we're going to shine a spotlight on the running backs.
And now, the 20 years of the FTFL.
All right, so it's no secret that our league is a quarterback-heavy league. When I went through the top 10 all-time single-game performances, it was almost entirely quarterbacks. When I tell other people that are in fantasy football that our league still awards not only 6 points for a passing touchdown, but then have, of course, the 10-point touchdown as well, they about poop themselves because most leagues are 4 points. There isn't really any sort of bonuses. Quarterbacks aren't the high profile scores that they are in our league, thus making a quarterback worth way more, and let's be honest, than let's say, for example, like a 3rd round pick. So I didn't want to then just focus on, when I talk about the high scores of all time, I have a feeling they're all going to be quarterbacks. I wanted to give the running backs their due. Because as I went through some of the history, there was a number that stood out to me as just outstanding, that it had stood up as well as it had to this day, and even in comparison with some of the all-time great scores we've had in our league. So for today, we're going to talk about the top 10 seasons put out by running backs throughout the history of the FTFL. Some familiar names, there were some really good years. Like 05 was a great year for running backs. 2018, a great year for running backs. Both of those years have 3 running backs apiece on this list. Without further ado, here we go. Number 10, LT LaDainian Tomlinson back in 05 put up 254 points. Number 9, Alvin Kamara just last year, 254.5. Now, I know you're thinking, well, Brett, hold on a second. Kamara benefited from having half-point receptions in the pass-happy league that it is today. I know, I get it, rest assured. I did adjust one of these scores, and I'll explain when we get to it, just to give you a better idea of how amazing that one season was. Coming in number 8, Larry Johnson, 256 back in 05. Number 7, Todd Gurley just last year, 269.5. But where, oh where, Todd Gurley, are you now? I still am not... We haven't gotten the full story. Your knee is maybe banged up. I don't know. The whole thing in LA right now is kind of a mess. Last year was glorious. Of course, I didn't do anything with it. I wasted it. Number 6, last year also, the 3rd 2018 player, Saquon in his rookie year, Barkley, 275.5. As we're climbing up the list now, number 5, CK 2000, Chris Johnson, back in 09, had 284 points. Number 4, Sean Alexander, 286 in 2005. Now, one of the things I wondered about with these seasons that stood out, that were so great, did the owner take advantage of them? In a lot of the situations, they didn't. This, however, is one of them. Eric did win the title riding Sean Alexander's coattails that year. That year, I believe, is the year that the Vikings played the Seahawks on a Sunday night. It was one of my all-time favorite games. I think Sean Alexander had 5 touchdowns. By halftime, it was 35-0. Coming in to the second half, the announcer, I believe it was Theismann, said, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just tuning in, 2 things happened here tonight. Number 1, the Vikings won the toss. Nope, I did that wrong already. Damn it! If you missed what's happening, let me recap for you. 2 things happened here tonight. Number 1, the Seahawks won the toss. And number 2, they elected to kick the living bejesus out of the Vikings. Oh, what a great night it was. Number 4, Sean Alexander. Number 3, Todd Gurley again. First person with 2 seasons on this list. 2017, also a year that Sid failed to take advantage of that output, because, of course, after that season, he was traded to the Hulkamaniacs, where you could argue that he was sent off to the wastelands of fantasy football, and I wouldn't necessarily completely reject that argument, sadly. Number 2, David Johnson back in 2016. Of course, we all know that's the year I traded him away, and Jeff rode him all the way to the fantasy title. 292 points. 292 points. Like, the threshold, I'll be honest, like 300 points for a quarterback is a great season. We've only had, I believe, 5 seasons where quarterbacks have gone above 400. That's why this last number 1 on this list, stands out so much. When I was going through, it jumped off the page at me as something that just seemed almost unfathomable. I think I said that right. Back in 2006, LaDainian Tomlinson put up 360 points. That's almost 70 points more than second place on this list. Now, that was back in 06, and I know for fact we weren't counting for receptions at that point, and LaDainian Tomlinson often was a reception machine. That was not his season. He had 100 receptions. I went back and looked. Scoring at that point was 2 points for every 30 combined yards. I know, Eric, you're still pissed about that. So those points were given to him. However, he was not getting points for receptions. He had 56 of those. Tack on 28 points. But just, by the way, 360 points is 15th all time in the FTFL for a single season scoring output. Add on those 28, it's 388. It goes all the way up to 7th. The 7th highest score in FTFL single season history. And Jeff Markser lost in the Fantasy Bowl. Oh my goodness, LaDainian Tomlinson, 13 years later, you are still the king of the running backs. And with that, we wrap up this little edition of 20 years of the FTFL. Back to the update. You know, as our league has changed over the years with scoring, and we've always been a quarterback-heavy league, I really felt that the running backs deserved a spotlight, and my God, that season LaDainian Tomlinson had. It stands up 13 years later. Wow. All right, well, back to the present. Couple more games to cover before we get out of here. Hulkamaniacs limping in at 3-6, taking on the Radioactive Monkeys at 5-4, who have won 4 straight games. Of course, a couple big trades between these two. This one, a game that in some ways I had to win. Saltmarsh, if he wanted to keep pace with Hagen, also would have liked to get the victory. He did at 89. My team, another just real hum-ho performance, 50.5. For Saltmarsh, Kirk Cousins, 18. You've got Harrison Butker at 17, and Mark Andrew, tight end for Baltimore. Both of them chipped in 17. Chris Carson, 13.5. Chris Godwin, 7 points. Chris Godwin, before I was able to trade him out of Saltmarsh for a first-round pick, was averaging 16.25 points a week. Since that trade, he's averaging less than 7. That's a win. Well, not for you, Adam, but for me, because let's be honest, there aren't many wins that I'm finding, especially when you only have 1 touchdown in your starting lineup. That was Michael Gallup with 12 points. Myers tacked on 11. Kareem Hunt, first game of the season, 7.5 points, 7 receptions, only had about 4 carries, is going to be part of that offense. I don't know how much, so I guess the real question I have is, how does the rest of the season go, and what does that mean for next year? Does he end up somewhere as a star running back or a starting running back on that team? I guess we'll have to see. Aaron Rodgers, 4 points. Now, his team won, and I will tell anyone who will listen to me, and you're watching now and listening, so I'll take the moment to do just that. I am far happier when the Packers win than I am when my fantasy team wins. I would much rather have the Packers win every game. If that meant I had to lose every game, that's just fine. Now, this season has really been, in a lot of ways, for me, reflective of how my quarterbacks have fared. So I looked it up. Now, Rodgers, 180 points in the season, number 6 overall quarterback. Not bad, not quite what I needed him to be, but remember, 52 of those 180 points came in 1 week in a buzzsaw performance. Of course, that was a performance where I beat Sid Hagen. That's right, King, you got beat. But 2 weeks he has had only 4 points. It has been a lackluster season in a sense of at least consistency for him, thus reflected in my 3-7 record. Saltmarsh moves on to 6-4 and a tie still for the South Division lead. Lastly, a battle in the cellar of the South. Ryan Deesum and his You Better Get On Him Early Black Friday special, Titties and Balls, coming in at 3-6, taking on the Pack, who is attacking no one at 3-6. Ryan Deesum, 9 touchdowns over 6 weeks. Just a putrid stretch. Rose from the ashes like a phoenix for 139 points to Eric's 76.5. Everything went right for Ryan. Now, Christian Kirk, 33 points. Christian Kirk on the season has just 70. I don't have to be a math teacher in Browerville to tell you that he has scored 37 points in the previous 9 weeks. Busted out for 33 just this week. Patrick Mahomes, 30 points in a loss. Travis Kelce, 13.5. The Rams defense, 13. Now, I told you, and we've made lots to mention this the last 2 weeks, 9 touchdowns in 6 weeks. This week alone, Ryan Deesom's team busted out for 10. 10 touchdowns in 1 week versus 9 over 6 weeks. He moves to 4-6 and now finds himself in number 6 in the playoff race. Now, I forgot to mention, my team finds himself after the loss in number 9. Still, though, with a chance. Eric's team with the loss is now again at the bottom of the league at number 10. And if you're Eric, Amari Cooper, 19.5, Phillip Rivers, 16, Greg Olsen, 10. Latavius Murray, 1 point. Couple of huge weeks for Latavius. Kamara's finally back, and he's back to being a somewhat useless backup, although he found himself in Eric's lineup nonetheless. All right, time for the stud, the dud, and the Deesum, and then we're going to get ourselves out of here and wrap up week 10. Stud of the week, Lamar Jackson, 36 points. That touchdown run with the spin, with the juke, was just sick. And I think for any team having to play him on Andy's team and or just in real football is in for a scare going forward. Also, Christian Kirk with a absolute just landish career day, 33 points. Dud of the week, Aaron Rodgers. It pains me to say that. It pains me to do that. 4 points. 4 points. I guess silver lining, the Packers won. They're 8-2. Hey! Deesum nomination this week goes to Jeff Markser. You lost by 85.5 points. Good Christ. I know some of that's luck, but it's still noteworthy. Eric, you were nominated last year for a Deesum Award. You didn't get it. At some point, we'd like to put you on the trophy. Jeff, I don't think this is going to get it for you. However, 85.5 points. I hope you're sitting on some ice to help cool things down. Here we go. Week 11, the first of 2 matchups over the final 3 weeks between the top 2 teams in the North. Mixing Cocktails coming in at 9-1, taking on those Riders, those maybe wannabe Riders at 8-2. The king of the North, 6-4, taking on Ryan Deesum. And got to get up in the morning to scrape off the frost and ice off his titties and balls at 4-6. Big matchup. Deesum, let's be honest, as bad as his team has played, still has a chance to win his division because the South is so tight. The Monkeys coming in at 6-4, the other first place team in the South, taking on the Architect at 4-6. 2 pivotal games in the South where teams that are looking to solidify their spot at a playoff, not only their playoff spot, but their lead, that first round bye. 2 teams fighting to cling to the playoffs and maybe climb their way to the top of the division. Team Linkowitz 4-6, taking on the Hulkamaniacs at 3-7. And lastly, the 3-7 Bowl, the Pack Attack taking on Mana Mana. This one is about pride in a lot of ways, and I suppose somewhat clinging to a chance in the playoffs, but not much beyond that. Until next week, my friends, enjoy the cold weather, enjoy the snow, and we'll catch you next time. Peace!